Oh my God, it's Sting! It's Sting, Tony!
It's Sting! Listen up, Rose City. We're back for another installment of the Sports Entertainers Podcast, Windsor's exclusive wrestling podcast. The boy, the Frostfather, Eric Sanders, and for those of you tuning in for the first time, what's up? Curly Fries, Kurlis Maddie's joining me. How you doing?
How's it going, Aaron? Nice intro. Like always. Keep at it.
Well, what I try to do best. At least that's what my mama told me. Alongside the heel, Drake D'Amore. Drake?
Going on, boys? Good to be back, and I'm ready to talk about the one and only, the Icon Stinger, among a lot of other things, obviously. Plenty to talk about.
That's right. Let's get right into it because this is a huge weekend in the AEW community and wrestling as well. We want to warn our listeners that this episode will sting just a little bit. For every generation of wrestling, there's a revolution, one of sorts that either is an event or a face to lead an era. And when AEW Revolution takes place on March the 3rd, one era, or should I say one icon, will call it a wrap. The icon in question is, of course, Sting. Today on the podcast, we're going to pay tribute to a man that has made a splash in the NWA, WCW, WWE, TNA, and AEW's squared circle. So we're going to start off with the one and only, the heel, Drake D'Amore. And what kind of recollections do you have with the man they call Sting?
Well, first thing that comes to mind is WCW. Is the face paint. Sting is the black and white, Honestly, there is a part of my life that, never even seen Surfer Sting, and, until I was, an adult, at least, 18, 19 years old. Never even knew that part existed. So obviously that comes to mind. I know his TNA run very well, obviously his short WWE run, and most recently in AEW. I did go back in the Starrcade archives. I had that Starrcade DVD, so I remember seeing a lot of that's where I started to see Surfer Sting and some of the old stuff just on WWE Network, the WCW classics and stuff like that. So I know my fair share of Sting, but man, this guy's been around for 40 years, so I really only know the latter half of his career.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, and I do want to point out something about Surfer Sting later on in the podcast, but we'll hold it there. Kurlis, you came into the wrestling scene late, but you've seen a plethora of Sting over the last few years, especially in his AEW era, so what do you remember about the icon?
Man, he really has done it all, eh? He's done he's done every single company that's come by him. He did, obviously, we talked WCW, WWE, AEW, TNA, etc. I want to mention before I get into his AEW run, as Drake was doing his little recap, I guess. Joker Sting.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that, and that was terrible.
We'll get to the good and the bad, I guess. But obviously, his wrestling career was it went short, I guess, short in quotations, when we all thought he was done with wrestling altogether when he got injured in that match against Seth Rollins. And then he kind of found this resurgence with this AEW run with Darby Allin. And honestly, it's been a really fun ride. And I mean, he's 66 now, and he's still going strong. I mean, it was time to call it a career, but it's still hard to believe that it's finally coming to an end, I guess. And it's been a fun ride from what I've seen, and I haven't seen too much of Sting, but I still love the guy.
Yeah,
that's
man.
right.
Sorry, dude. 64. We got Sting's Wikipedia up here, so we're gonna run down this man's entire life, pretty much. I mean, his entire life pretty much was in wrestling. 1959, March 20th. His birthday, so it's coming up. He'll be 65, and I guess that's why he wants to call it quits. And a guy from Omaha, Nebraska, something I didn't know. I was yeah, you don't know much about this guy. It's hard to see him past the paint.
Absolutely.
60, about to be 65 years old. That's incredible. I do want to point out, now in the Surfer Stinger phase, and remember, this was around the time where there's been a lot of cartoony gimmicks in the world of professional wrestling in WCW and WWF. But when he changed his character from the surfer to the icon that is Sting with that black and white face paint, I thought it was one of the best character rebrands for anybody in the history of wrestling because I'm sure he realized like times were changing in wrestling, and then he ended up winning the World Heavyweight Championship at Starrcade, I want to say 97, because that was the first WCW event that Bret Hart did. Now, I will forego the whole event saying that main event was BS for obvious reasons, but for him to win the heavyweight title in his new gimmick, I thought it was pretty awesome. And looking back at some of his clips, it was just incredible. One of my favorite moments when he was in WCW, near the end of Monday Nitro, he helped out ADP. So he hooked him up, and up he went to the rafters and then completely fade to black. I don't know how that stands out to me to this day, but it just does because that was the kind of way to end your show off in a fantastic cliffhanger. Now, to TNA's credit, too, I thought it was one of his weirdest eras in his 40 years in wrestling because you had that Sting, and then you had the main event Mafia.
Oh
Wait
yeah.
a minute. Do you think Sting, the lone wolf, would ever be a part of main event Mafia? And lo and behold, he did. But then again, around that time, it was an awkward era for TNA. Hogan, Dixie Carter. Need I say more? Someone else could take the wheel on that.
Not to push on to the negative too much, but I always found the Triple H versus Sting match at the first match they had at his first match in WWE kind of disappointing. I mean, why would he team up with NWO, the group that he was feuding with WCW? It doesn't make any sense. And then I don't know, Triple H going over and the young
War.
yeah, it's
War revisited.
it's
That's
stupid.
like gang wars still to this day, man. It's like blood and Crips.
Well, I don't know. I just found it kind of silly, and then Triple H going over in Sting's first match in WWE kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Even back then, as someone who didn't know much about Sting, as I was watching, I'm like, okay, there's this cool new character on terms of WWE audience, especially like the kids who are watching and the people who didn't grow up with Sting. They watched it, and then this guy just loses in his first match. It's kind of lame, but hey,
Yeah.
his debut in that company was pretty cool. I mean, 2015 Survivor Series, we've talked about it before with Dolph Ziggler as the sole survivor and Sting coming in. They did call him the Vigilante for some reason. That was never his nickname. The Vigilante Sting. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah. Needed a new nickname, I guess.
They had to put a stamp, the WWE stamp on it. But
That or copyright reasons, right?
I mean, they're using the icon in AEW. There's definitely there's no copyright there.
And knowing
'Cause,
WWE,
yeah, someone else is the icon in WWE or something, probably like Hulk Hogan
Really?
or something.
isn't it interesting that outside of WWE, every promotion he's been at, he's always had some sort of encounter with Ric Flair. And I bring that up because the final image we saw of WCW was Sting versus Ric Flair. We know their story in NWA. That's how Sting won his first heavyweight championship. WCW, we don't need to say a whole lot. TNA and AEW. So you have two icons, if you will, flashing each and every time they cross paths. So it's strange to still see Ric Flair still going on, but not in the square circle. But when it comes to Sting, there's always some sort of relevance when it comes to those two.
These guys will be, again, they're going to go down in history, and you're going to see Ric Flair in his last match for sure. I'm sure you're going to see him on Sunday. These guys have been in every promotion too, Aaron, like you said, like he's been through everywhere. I mean, coming back to the old days of every territory possible, those two were running it through, and all the way to WCW, which allegedly WWE requested that. They said, this is how we want to end WCW, which is actually pretty nice when you look back on it after all the shit they put on him after. Continue to shit on him till WrestleMania 31 or whatever. That is pretty cool. And I mean, that was that era, that Ted Turner era, is a big thing in wrestling, and it's crazy, yeah, that Ric Flair is still going, but that Sting is still wrestling. I mean, this guy broke in with the Ultimate Warrior. They both started wrestling at the same time, in 1985. So
Wow.
almost, yeah, so almost 40 years or 50 years, right? Did I do the math right there?
Almost
That's
40.
crazy. And
40 years, yeah.
the stuff he's still doing is unbelievable. He's still entertaining. He's still, jumping off things and doing the most wild stuff that you shouldn't do at 64. It's so much
Yeah.
fun.
And to your point, like with WWE, like his run obviously wasn't that great and didn't end great at all. I
Hmm.
mean, it looked like, yeah, that he was never going to wrestle again. And he was like 60 years old. So it was like whatever, right? But when he came to AEW, I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of like, I really wasn't that like hyped up because of that. I was like, it's cool that like it's that you got him and stuff, but like, are you going to put him in, really going to put him in the ring? Because like, look at what we just saw. But he's created magic with Darby Allin and got to do a match with Great Muta too. So another guy that he's ran the ropes with, no pun intended, guys like him, Ricky Steamboat, and now you can add Darby Allin to the list. Like all the stuff that they were able to do together, like you said, man, it was everything has been top notch. I don't think he's really had like a crappy match or anything.
AEW's work with Sting and Legends in general, I've generally enjoyed. It's used them in a minor role, but still keep their mystique, keep their legacy. It doesn't hurt Sting, and if anything, it kind of ends his career on a high note rather than, you know, being injured by Seth Rollins and having to wrap it up like that. It wasn't WWE's fault, but also it was kind of a crappy way to go out, right? So, I mean, I guess he wanted to end on a positive note, and I think it's been positive. His run in AEW has been pretty great. It only makes Darby Allin look good. So I'll say that it only helps Darby Allin.
Yeah,
There's going to be
rise
a
his
whole lot of
stock even
stock for
more.
Darby Allin.
I always say like I never got to see like the Undertaker. I never got to see him live in a like I never got to see that legend. But I mean, in a sense, I got to see Sting. I got to see the WCW. You know th- that icon in Sting. So I got something out. And on that note, I mean, we never got to see that Undertaker Sting match that they dreamed so much about. I think both guys just got too old.
Yeah, honestly, they should have just done that at WrestleMania 31, just got it over with.
Mhm.
Just do it. I guess like in retrospect now, like obviously Bray Wyatt and Undertaker was great and stuff
Mhm.
like that, but I guess Bray Wyatt could have not lost at WrestleMania as well, and you know. But then would have Sting be whatever? I don't know. Just who cares? It's wrestling. Just
It,
do it.
it's all hindsight at this point, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see where Sting's career is wrapping up, and in that note too. I mean, where Undertaker's career wrapped up, where they can both be satisfied. Uh, a lot of wrestlers go and go and go and go, and they just kind of like end off in like a whimper, right? So I'm glad specific wrestlers, especially the ones we like, are ending their careers on a high note.
That's a big similarity between Sting and The Undertaker. I was able to see Sting when AEW Forbidden Door came to Toronto, and I'm looking at the match right now. Jericho, Kissy Boy, and Minoru Suzuki versus Sting, Darby, and Tetsuya Naito. And I was very concerned at first when Sting took that table spot, but I was still in awe that I was able to see Punk, MJF, and even the icon Sting. And I do want to point out and apologize to you boys right now. That was the last full match I was able to watch in that event before the boys and I hightailed it to the train. So it was an okay way to end, my experience at Forbidden Door. But hey, we were
Yeah.
able to see Sting and a lot of people, especially at Forbidden Door. So that's an in-person memory that I have of Sting. I mean, near the end of his career, I don't know if did he do his, promo is saying it's all going to wind up and come to an end around that time, or was that later?
I actually don't remember. I don't remember
I don't
when
remember
he's.
that.
Oh, go
I don't
ahead, Drew.
remember. I don't remember when he did. Yeah, it was definitely obviously sometime last year. But yeah, we'll get to that. I got to see Sting too, though. I didn't get to say mine. Did you guys know I was at TNA Victory Road 2011?
Yes.
Sting versus Jeff Hardy. I'm actually working on doing a little YouTube video for it. So hopefully by the time this is out, that's out too. Hoping for the weekend because obviously Sting's final match. So I feel like I've seen him a lot. So after that I went to like all the tapings at Universal Studios. So I seen him a bunch there. But I think he even came to Windsor, I think, with TNA
Oh,
for a house show like back in 2012. I could be wrong on that. I gotta check. But yeah, I got to see his worst match of all time against Jeff Hardy, I guess.
got that off the
As far
bucket list.
as most people are concerned. I don't think I definitely didn't see him in WWE. And where did we see him in AEW?
There was a couple. There
Maybe
was a Dynamite where he just honestly he just
Oh,
showed
I think
right.
up.
he was just like, yeah, like he didn't do anything, but he was just like there, right? They just did a
He showed
promo
up
or
with
something.
he showed up with Darby. He didn't even do a promo. He just walked with Darby. He made his appearance known. I marked out like crazy, and then he left. And I was like, "That's cool by me. I'm okay with that." Sting. I got to see Sting. Got him off the list. Yeah. I mean, can we mention Tony Schiavone for all these years? I mean, call it's Sting. Such a good call.
Well,
Iconic.
beats the hell out of It's Boss Time.
I like It's Boss Time. Don't be mean to It's Boss Time. I hope
Yeah,
I
a
hope
lot of
to
things beat that. A
get
lot of
Tony
things beat
Schiavone to say It's Boss Time when Mercedes makes her inevitable debut in AEW.
Yes.
We give
Yes,
we
in
give
boss.
Michael Cole too much crap. He's actually gotten a lot more. I don't know. We'll talk about Michael Cole one day, I think.
I love Michael Cole. He's awesome.
I do too.
He's great.
There was a time where I was irritated with him, but over the last couple of years, it's like he pretty much put WWE on his back. Let's remember and let's not forget that he and Samoa Joe stood out in the rain in WrestleMania 3 years ago.
Never
That's
forget.
courage.
That's courage. That's dedication. Our AEW champion and the best commentator in WWE currently. Wow. Was that a hot take? I don't even know. Pat McAfee. I think I'd give it to Pat McAfee actually.
Yeah, I
We're going
like
off
that.
topic. We're still have anything about
Yeah.
Sting?
Oh, I have to, of course.
Yeah, it's the Sting
He wrestled
episode.
Samoa Joe. He wrestled Samoa Joe, a lot of guy you just mentioned, a guy in TNA. I mean, what's get a little bit into like his TNA run was like 15 years long.
Mm.
First off, probably about 10, 13. World champion. It was, he was the NWA champion multiple times. This is probably where at least me and Aaron seen a lot of them, right? Like Aaron, you even mentioned his time in Main Event Mafia. He's been in multiple groups. He's been in the NWO. He's been in the Wolfpack. That was kind of meh. He, he did his tag team things before he went to the Crow Sting, the black and white face paint. But he had so many. Like he literally was like Mr. TNA.
Mm. Yeah, even on my end, I'd always hear murmurs about Sting, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. I never watched TNA when I was that young, but like I'd always hear the murmurs. I'd always hear, those are the names. I was always kind of jealous, on the sidelines, like, ah man, I don't have I don't have the channel that plays TNA right now. That sounds
Yeah.
really cool.
It's one of those like mystery things too, but like it still don't understand why he never went to TNA or WWE. Like he says, like, it would always come up in discussions at contract time, but he always just like was like, fuck it. I'll just stay here, I guess. I don't know. He was like, I don't know, it's just too good. But he could have done anything he wanted, I suppose. I don't know.
I think at that
Oh, that's
time,
all.
oh, sorry, Aaron, but I think at that time a lot of those wrestlers had the mindset of like, this is our baby. This is, TNA is this new up and coming thing, and we want to make it. Making an alternative in a lot of senses. I mean, what AEW is
Yeah.
now, I guess.
At first,
At
but like
first.
I said, he was there for like 12 years, and he could have like right away after WCW, he was one of the biggest stars. He freaking ended the show with Ric Flair, and sat at like all those other guys sat at home and then came to WWE, like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Scott Steiner, but he just He's talked about it before, but I just find it crazy because inevitably we get to 2014, which again, his debut was sick, but it was just too far gone.
Mm. I actually had a question. Excuse my ignorance on terms of this, but that period of time between his time in WCW and TNA, what wasn't there a gap period where TNA wasn't really like when did TNA got started in like 2003, right? 2004,
02.
2002. So did he go right from WCW to TNA?
No, there was like a bunch of like crappy indie shows at the time. So
Oh,
he was in World Wrestling All Stars for the most part.
Oh crap! Don't bring that up,
Had,
man.
like I think it was in yeah, it was in the UK a lot, and I thought Hulk Hogan was involved in it, but the Buff Bagwell, a bunch of WCW guys that
Oh, you're
didn't go
thinking of
together.
XWF.
It's kind of like XWF, but
so
apparently this is where he spent most of his time, and
so
it's like Disco Inferno and like guys like that.
my question is, why would Sting? I mean, we don't know what's going on in his head, but like, why would Sting, a big star from WCW, go from
Yeah.
being the biggest star to just doing some indie shows? I mean, I guess we'll never know in terms of that. I mean, that's between Sting and himself, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know. It seems kind of confusing.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. But
TNA at least
I
makes
guess.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, at that time, maybe TNA didn't really exist, and then he pretty much went there right away. In 2003, he started going there, but they were just like TNA started off. It was just like they would do a show a week or like a month, right? And they would just tape it and put it on pay-per-view,
Mhm.
and it was a weekly pay-per-view. They didn't have like a television show. This is back, 2002, so people would buy them for like $10, and
Mhm.
it'd just be like 2 hours of random fucking wrestling. But it had all these guys that just left either WCW or WWE or ECW. So he started appearing on that. But obviously, once it got to like the Impact era, when they were doing like the TV show on Spike and stuff, is where he was really like signed to them and stuff. But I don't know. I'll never really get it, right? But he's talked about it before. I'll have to pull up some old interviews. And anyway,
Maybe it's because it's the business. They don't want to call it quits anytime soon. And plus, when you're when you're out of a job or out of a payroll, you'll just take any given opportunity that you can. And another thing about the start of TNA, it's so cool because I think at first it started it had like an online stream at the beginning, and it had a TV deal with Fox Sports Net, and then Spike, and that's where the roller coaster or the carousel of stations came along. I do want to point out another thing. TNA is one of the most underrated gyms because without it, we wouldn't hear a whole lot about Bobby Roode.
Mhm.
Or Team 3D wouldn't have some sort of revival in their career. Kurt Angle wouldn't have a second coming of his career. And we could say a whole lot about Kurt Angle around that time, but we won't.
Ray
And
Dudley.
same with Sting. He was able to revitalize his career too with the whole main event mafia thing and whatnot. And of course, AJ Styles. So without TNA, I don't think a lot of the people that we see on our TVs, on our screens somewhere, in the squared circle would be here today.
Yeah.
no doubt about it, man. I mean, look at AJ Styles alone. Like he was pretty much just a TNA guy for like good 10 years or more, and he debuted at the Royal Rumble, and everybody knew who he was. Like, and like being a wrestling fan, I don't know about you guys, but like I remember like at that time, like people being skeptical of it because of that, and even him saying that. I'm like, how? Like, how do you not know who AJ Styles is? Like, and he did New Japan and all that crap. So like, people, know who he is. It's just like the WWE is like a whole separate thing. But like Aaron's saying, I'm looking at just a picked a random year, 2008 Sting's matches in TNA, and half of them are against guys that are in WWE now, like Robert Roode, kind of in WWE, guys that he got to work with prior, like Kevin Nash and blah blah blah. AJ Styles, he worked with like the new guys, he worked with the old guys. He got to do everything in TNA. So that was a good time. I mean, again, we wouldn't know who half of these guys were. And once all of the guys that we watched on Raw and SmackDown left, that's usually where they went. So we got to see, like you said, a revitalization of Kurt Angle among many, many people.
For sure.
We talk about not Kurt Angle, Sting the wrestler, and now there's Sting the mentor. And again, the job that he has done with Darby Allin and taking a lot of other young wrestlers underneath his wing, whether it be in WCW, TNA, or WWE, that's one of the things people don't talk most about, especially in the last few years, because all you would hear is about people just talking crap about somebody's performance in the ring. Oh, he doesn't have it anymore. Why is he doing that? But the chemistry that he has made with those wrestlers in the last few years of his career is fantastic. And it's going to be hard to imagine when we wake up on March the 4th, gentlemen, that there will be wrestling without the guidance of the icon Sting. It's going to sting a little bit, but the world of wrestling, it works like this. The character and the legacy isn't gone because it's still upon the wrestlers who had the privilege to be around somebody like a Sting or an Undertaker, and they'll just take all those teachings and just run the ball with it into this generation and the next. And it's hard to believe he's done that for over 40 years. Hell of a career.
I was gonna say recent matchups and tag teams that we never thought we would see. I mean, CM Punk and Sting, Edge and Sting, or Adam Copeland and Sting recently. Christian Cage and Sting having some altercations with each other. I mean, you heard the promo. Christian Cage apparently had a poster of Sting on his wall at one point, and now he gets to work with him. I can't imagine how much of an honor that must be to work with your hero like that.
Yeah. So the AEW run is kind of like the TNA run, but like specifically a tag team division, Sting and Darby Allin. Because like I'm just going through all these matches again, just like you're saying, Miro, the Gun Club, CM Punk, Ethan Page, guys you worked with or against, just from all over the map. FTR, the Hardy Boys, like it's amazing to be honest.
It must just be cool for some of these wrestlers who just grew up watching Sting,
100%. And like how many people, like there's guys that can say that exactly what you're saying. Like I grew up watching Sting and they're retired. And there's guys that are coming in still doing it. Like that's fucking insane. He's like a Yarmy Yager. Wrestling.
There's only
Now,
a
there
few
you go.
wrestlers. Oh, sorry. There's only a few wrestlers like the old man wrestlers out there, like Terry Funk and that kind of thing, who just kept going until the very end.
So this is it. Okay, we're at this point. We talked a good amount about his career, and we've seen these things happen again and again. Retirement matches. So I'm gonna put you guys on blast. Do you think he's gonna actually retire, or do you think that there's a chance that one day, next year or something, he does a match? I'm gonna say
He's
that
going to make his last splash on the 3rd.
Yeah, I think that this has got to be it. He's just too old. Look at him. He's just too old.
Well, I mean, okay, so with Sting, he seems pretty genuine, but I said that about Shawn, and he had a match in freaking Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
I mean,
like what if they do the Undertaker versus Sting at Saudi Arabia? Like,
I don't know, man. And then, I mean, Ric Flair had his last match technically at WrestleMania 24, and then he had his last match at the pay-per-view called Last Match, Ric Flair's last match. So some of these wrestlers.
He had a match against Sting in like TNA. He had multiple matches with fucking Sting in TNA after his retirement match.
Yeah.
But we don't need to do a Ric Flair episode like this because it's just it's not done.
That's what I mean by some of these wrestlers don't know how to hang it up. Someone like The Undertaker getting to end his career with that AJ Styles movie, I guess, the WrestleMania match. That was a good way to end it. Someone like Sting, getting to end it with Darby Allin against the Young Bucks. He's not going to have a bad match against the Young Bucks. They're not going to have a bad match. These three guys, if they need to, they'll carry him through something really, really special. And Sting, I don't want to take anything away from Sting. He's going to put out a good performance as well at 64 years old.
And only in a few days, we're going to see that final match too. AEW Revolution, March the 3rd, a.k.a. Sting's Final Splash. A hell of a career from the icon they call Sting for over 40 years, gentlemen. And as we wrap up this show, too, we also want to pay a quick tribute to someone we lost in the wrestling community not so long ago, Ole Anderson. And I'm sure Sting have had his encounters with him either as a booker or a wrestler in his early days in NWA WCW. So we lost Ole, about a day or two ago? And that's interesting. The fact that he was able to be around when the Andersons were there, Arn and Ole, and the rest of the lineage down the road. I'd also like to remind our viewers that TNA is also coming to Windsor, next Friday, as a matter of fact, for Sacrifice and an Impact taping. Is that right, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that.
Correct. And you're going, Kurlis, I have a buddy or two come with us, and if you're going, watch out for us. We're going to be doing our vlog thing, so if you want to be on it, then.
We're going to be repping a special someone. No spoilers.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Be sure to stop these two guys when you see them at TNA Sacrifice too. I won't be there, unfortunately, but I will be there in spirit, no doubt about it. It's going to be fun. So at the St. Clair College Gymnasium, that's where it's going to take place on March the 8th. I think bell time is 7 p.m. Doors open at 6. It's going to be a big event, no doubt about it. Let's disregard what's happened in the last little while. Let's listen. TNA, Windsor. What more can you ask for? Boys, I have a feeling the next episode we do, we're going to be, closer and closer to WrestleMania. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about, and hopefully all of you, the listeners and the viewers, will join in for us. We are on every 2 weeks. Not that hard to find. Join us on social media. Sports Entertainers Podcast, Windsor's exclusive wrestling podcast. So on behalf of The Heel, Greg Moore, and Curly Fries, Curtis Maddie, this being your boy, the Frostfather, Aaron Sanders, thank you for tuning in. And until we meet again in about a couple of weeks, wear some soap, go long from the Rose City, and to Sting, what a dynamic career you've had. Here's to the Stinger.